This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by Score, a new mobile app coming to you this August. Score is an interactive game that lets users win deals at bars and restaurants based on what's going on in live sporting events. Find new places to watch the game and save money on your bill at the same time by taking advantage of Score's unique interactive specials that give you an additional stake in the action. A Score special can be anything a location wants it to be. From 10% off an item if a team scores a touchdown to a free round of drinks if the quarterback throws for 400 yards. Any stat can be turned into a game. Pick the deals you want to win, watch the games you want to watch, and score deals in real time. The app will update when your teams or players record a relevant stat. When the conditions of your deals are met, coupons are sent to your device to show to your server or bartender. It's that easy. Score is coming to the App Store and Google Play this August. For more information, check them out on the web at score-app.io and follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Score Deals. Score. Watch games. Score deals.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes it a goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What up, Internet fam? It's the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm back from vacation. I'm Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. With me, as always, in his nice blue pocketed shirt, John the Doc Macaroon. What's up, sir?
Always great to have you back in studio. I brought the right equipment this time. This was the piece right here that connects to the phone that I forgot last time. And so I tried to plug in this damaged phone right directly into the socket there, and that's why you couldn't hear me. I could hear you perfectly. It's just I didn't have the right gear. And this week, I brought it, and we're ready to rock and roll on episode 116. I definitely missed you. How was the trip?
The trip was good. It was a little relaxing, but it was the first trip that we actually took the kid with us. So there was definitely some struggles along the way.
Why?
I'll tell you why. The first couple nights we had no idea what was going to happen because he sleeps in a pack and play. And you being a father, do you know what a pack and play is?
No doubt about it. The first time we tried to have the little one stay at my mother-in-law's house, we tried to have my first daughter stay in the pack and play. Total nightmare. She lasted maybe 45 minutes, and then she screamed her little head off. She wanted the crib back.
So, yeah, it's a portable crib. First couple nights, he did really, really well. He slept normally he'd be sleeping until about 4:30 a.m., give him a bottle, go back to sleep. He pretty much did just that. He even slept a little bit longer the first couple days. And then progressively, it went downhill, and he started waking up 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Still got some sleep, but it was just, he's at a point where he's rolling over, so it's always constantly making sure that he's not suffocating himself. And as a parent, it's one of the scariest things of just not knowing what's happening.
It seemed like from the pictures that the family, the crew had a good time. You went out by the water. Where'd you guys go?
That's the thing, is that in pictures, whenever anybody sees him, oh, he's such a happy baby. But it's 95% of the time that people aren't with us. I mean, he's not always unhappy, but he has his moments. He's a baby. But yeah, we went to Lexington, which is about 20 minutes north of Port Huron, for the first couple days with my wife's side of the family. And then we took another 3.5-hour ride a little bit further north around Grayling to Lewiston with my side of the family. So we stayed in cottages, both of them. We were on water. The kid got to swim in lakes. I mean, he was only in there for maybe 30, 40 minutes. But you shouldn't have a baby in 70-degree water.
So all in all, it was a good trip. You got what you needed out of it. You relaxed, hung out with the crew, and you got to realize, okay, with the baby, it's a little bit of a challenge, but you're working your way through it. And hey, when you take a vacation, man, it's all good. You get a chance to relax, go out, and definitely, I do think that many people really find it that, hey, sometimes you don't have to leave Michigan. You don't have to go to Florida. You don't have to go to Vegas or California. There are some great areas all across Michigan, great beaches, great weather up north. There are some of the most scenic places that you can imagine. I've never heard of Lexington or Leamington before, and I saw the pictures. I'm like, wow, maybe one day I'll take my kids there too, because each and every time, that's why I love social media, is it's an opportunity to see what people are doing and continue to take those great pictures. I'm glad you had a good time, man. You deserved it.
Yeah, very fun trip. Got to hang out with the family and, just spend some quality time together and not be at work.
Start saving because what? Next year, 2 years, you're taking the kid to Disney?
We actually have it planned out. I think we're waiting until 2021. We want to take him. We're not going to take him when he's a toddler. He's not going to remember it at all. But I think we were looking at all like the different release dates because they're coming out with a whole new like Star Wars world and a Star Wars actual hotel. And 2021, pretty much everything that they're going to be building is going to be built by that point. And it happens to be, I think, the 50th anniversary of Disney World. So I think that's the tentative plan. So
no, I think for us, the missus is starting to kind of, nudge me a little bit. And the girls next year will be 6 and 4. And just by the way they've been acting, they're fun, they're into it, they're engaged. So I think next year or the year after, I'm taking my kids for the first time.
Dude,
I've never been to Disney. I've never been.
It's so fun. I may sound like a geek and people might call me out for it, but whatever. Disney World it's a cool place to go. I mean, me and my wife went on our honeymoon there. It totally is a place you can go without kids. I mean, and when you go with kids, it's definitely going to be a hassle. I mean, you're going to be exhausted by the end of the day, but to see the magic on your kids' faces, it's going to be worth the entire thing and all the money that you spend on it.
Episode 116 kicked off. I think it's going to be a great podcast. We got a lot to get to. In the second half of the podcast, I definitely want to get your take on Jay Cutler making his return to the NFL. $10 million for a broadcaster, former quarterback that we all know around here as a guy that, at best, we can describe as incompetent, but he got lucky in that, a guy that he used to work with is now the head coach over there at Miami, and the quarterback went down. So that's the easiest $10 million I think he's ever going to make, and I want to get your sense of, why is it that he's on a roster and maybe somebody else who's still out of work is not?
I got some thoughts on it, and we'll bring it up.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk about the weekend that was for the Detroit Lions. A lot of observations from the mock game that people had and some talk around town nationally regarding some players that, hey, maybe we can have some high hopes for. Once in a while, it's nice to look at things a little bit positively. And then to end the podcast, I definitely want to get your sense of fantasy football. Your show is coming back hopefully pretty soon, the Fantasy Nerds podcast. I'm getting, excited for the opportunity to get back into fantasy football. But definitely we got to kick off the podcast talking about the Tigers. Listen, it was exciting there early on in the week that you took off. Early in the week, they were playing great baseball. Justin Upton was smashing the hell out of the baseball. Anibal Sanchez was kind of doing some things. The pitching rotation had seemed to stabilize. And then in the second half of the week, you started throwing out your bum pitchers and Drew Verhagen. Anibal Sanchez regressed back to where he was. For a quick second, I was this close to saying, no way. Can they potentially make a run? Can this team who sold, where the organization waved the white flag, could this team basically be going out there with no pressure and going out there and smashing the hell out of the baseball and just going out there having a good time? But the way that they lost, it kind of reminds me and brought me back to earth. The Tigers are a squad in the neighborhood of an 80 to 85 win team. And we just kind of now have to completely shift our focus away from, no, this team cannot make a 15 to 20 game run in the last 2 months. The only thing now that we can look to is, hey, Candelario is coming up. We want to see what he can do, what the hell has been going on with Joe Jimenez, and what can we take away from his appearances. Last week, the Tigers kind of really stamped home to me. It's time to evaluate strongly the players that are playing and not look anymore to success for the rest of the season.
I was gone for a week, and I come back, and even though there was that brief moment of happiness for your Tiger fans, what have I've been saying it all year, up and down, and that's what we're getting. You get a 4-win streak, and then you just get an absolute dud of a performance, and you get duds of performances from guys that you are hopeful about. Talk about Joe Jimenez. It was
first time back.
Role. It was I know Brent Osmond was saying that I want to put him in a low pressure situation, but it's going to happen. This is baseball. There isn't going to be low pressure situations in every single game. So you throw him out there. It's not like you're throwing him out there with bases loaded and you need to protect a 1-run lead. It's tied. It's going back and forth, and he immediately comes out and gives up a bomb.
That was quite the shocker there, because of the fact that in the minors he had such a streak going where he was pitching effectively. The issue is in the major leagues, guys can hit fastballs, but for that performance, I can't give him a whole lot of blame. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to make excuses, but the ump in Baltimore was pinching him so much that any of his close pitches were called balls. I mean, literally, for him to get a strike called, he had to throw the ball straight down the middle. I felt like the umpire was screwing the Tigers left and right. And I was like, man, I can understand the guy trying to do anything to get a strike called. But at the same time, Joe Jimenez right now, we just got to be patient, and we can't really take away a lot other than, hey, how's his velocity? How's his command? How is he doing now in different situations? You got to keep throwing him out there. You got to just game after game when he has an opportunity to go out there. I'm just looking at it like I'm not going to judge him based on 2 performances. Yeah. I want to see him in like 15 performances. How does he do in a wide variety of situations? Right now, it just seems like early on when he's called up, you got to also remember, he had a week off. He was called up, and he wasn't really doing nothing. And the time that he was brought up was a 2-2 game, tight. It didn't seem like the right time to introduce him back into the bullpen. But Brad Ausmus did it. It didn't go as successful. Appearance number 2 wasn't so bad.
Somebody needs to tell the Tigers then that they're playing with house money at this point, that you don't have to, you don't have to keep safe these players who you're bringing up and put them in really good situations. Yeah, you said it. I want to see him in 15 to 20 different situations, and you're not going to get that if you wait for the team to be up by 5 runs. Put him out every night or every other night and see what he can do against major league talent, because that's really the last stepping stone for Jimenez at this point, because we've seen what he can do in AAA. Now we need to see what he can do in the big leagues. And if he's going to be the closer of the future, or if he's going to be the setup man of the future, or if he's just going to be another scrub who is basically just another failure on this team.
But positive news, Shane Green came out last week and was dominant. I think in New York he was outstanding. He had a lot to prove, being that the Yankees traded him to the Tigers. He was out there throwing fastballs, a lot of strikes, was getting guys out quickly. He had a couple performances there where it was like 8 pitches, 7 pitches, and I know they used him back to back to back, and he got 3 saves, and it was nice to see a guy, because, to be honest, I didn't think he was going to do much at all at that closer spot. I thought that, my honest opinion was, this is going to be a huge downgrade from Justin Wilson, and it turned out he did pretty well. But at the same time, I kind of want to see it again where he goes out there back to back to back, get a couple saves, and I want to see Jimenez being thrown in there in a save situation, because I want to see, can he handle the pressure? Can he go out there when it's a 1-run game and it's tight? What does he do? Let's say, for example, if he gets 1 out and then he walks somebody. How does he handle some adversity? Because in the minor leagues, it seems like he has kind of a really strong grasp on performing well. He can get guys out in the minors, but the jump and the difference in talent from major leagues to what they got going on in the minors is vast. You can see. Dude, guys, regular guys that are batting .260 can catch up with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball and deposit it into the seats. I want to see him be able to kind of, like everyone always says, the art of pitching, because he's going to have to use different pitches. He can't just throw fastball after fastball to these major league hitters. He's going to get destroyed.
Yeah, it's great that Shane Green is doing some good stuff, but Shane Green isn't the guy that we want the answer. We don't want him to be the answer. I mean, if he turns out to be like the next Andrew Miller, where he's a complete reclamation project,
don't you think
he's done a about face? If that's the case, then great. We have our closer for the next couple of years.
If you think about what's going on in the meeting room, if you see the pegboard there, ideally, if it all works out, you could go, if you want to do the traditional 7-8-9, Jimenez, Rondon, Green. That's not horrible if these guys get their acts together.
But is Jimenez, he's the guy you want to be your closer. And is Rondon, these are all guys who are all just, they're on a tipping point. They aren't established in any way, shape, or form. Shane Green, I equate him essentially just like Justin Wilson. Justin Wilson did really good for us in the beginning part of the season, but I don't think anybody had any real hopes that he was going to continue this and be like the next best closer in the major leagues. It was always going to just be a matter of time until, he just blows up again or if he gets hurt. And I see Shane Green, Bruce Rondon, both of those guys are any success they have at this point, unless they go an entire season where they can, consistently perform, I'm not going to trust them. I'm always going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Joe Jimenez is the guy that you want to put this team, who you want to be the eventual closer of this team, or at least figure out if he can be, because we have an idea of what Shane Green is. We have an idea of what Bruce Rondon is. We don't really have that great of an idea of what Jimenez can do and what he's going to be for this team. So we need to see what he can do.
Quickly, I was fascinated when you started talking about the Tigers and the fact that you were on vacation the last week. There was a lot of news made by the Tigers. What is your wife's kind of attitude regarding you peeking at your phone on vacation? Because for me, whenever I'm with my wife and we're on a date and I know that there's a game on, I try to sneak off a little bit and try to hit that score app from, Yahoo and see, potentially what the score is and check the Twitter because of our following on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. I want to get a sense, what were the boundaries and how did you consume sports in a week that you were on vacation? Because for me, when I took the vacation for the week of the 4th of July, I tried my absolute best to stay away from the phone in front of my wife, because she's always like, this is your vacation. This is the time where you're supposed to devote to the family and the girls, and you're on your phone 24/7. Give it to me. And I'm like, oh God, I just want like 15 minutes to check the scores and check some tweets and throw some stuff out there. Please just let me watch it. Stop nagging me.
My wife is really good with that because, she herself, she looks to Facebook. So, we each take our time. The beginning part when we were in Lexington, it was actually a lot easier to not look at my phone because for the majority of the time,
no service,
either no service or because you're so close to on the border of Michigan,
roaming to Canada.
You're always roaming, or it actually thinks you're in Canada. So like we got a message the first day we're up there, and it's like, oh hey, if you can either do like $2 a day, or it's going to be like $1 per megabyte that you spend on data. So for the majority of the part, I actually put my phone in airplane mode. Once we got up to Lewiston, it was a little bit better service, but there wasn't anything super important. I kept up on what was going on with the Lions. At this point, I am really checked out on what the Tigers are going to do because they're not going to do anything the rest of the year. So, I mean, I am pretty much moved over to football.
Gotcha. See,
and
Jason,
I can't wait until we start
you just
talking
missed
about
an
football.
opportunity to blow smoke up my ass, man. You could have been like, look, I only locked into your Twitter page and double checked to make sure anything, a couple times a day to make sure if there's anything bumping off, but you didn't do that, huh? You just stayed away from the internet and really went on vacation, huh?
Between dealing with my child, trying to make him happy, and everything else, I had my hands full, John. I'm not you when you just, kind of hang out and let your wife do everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you wanted to be active. I know that. Oh, man. It's unbelievable. But at the same time, it's okay. I knew you weren't dialed into the #1 sports Twitter page in Detroit. It's okay. Next time, though, just peek into our site. I think that we break the news and we have great debates and fans.
Whenever I pull up Twitter, you guys are the first things that pops up on it. It's always when it goes, I scroll down and it's what did you miss? There's always something from Detroit Podcast or from Adam, and I get all my news there. Yep. I got to watch the Hall of Fame game, the garbage that was.
Pretty professional. You were able to be engaged with the family and catch your sporting news. Gary Baker writes in on Twitter, Jimenez has to be able to get guys out consistently and not get lit up, as well as Rondon. So I started to put out there to the supporters, do they think that 7, 8, 9 can be Jimenez, Rondon, and Green? I like that. I feel like you got a situation there where you got 3 flamethrowers back to back to back. The issue is, though, they're all gunners. They're all guys that, aren't really that crafty yet. Shane Green, I think, obviously is the best of the bunch. And something that he said really made me happy when he first got out there and was given his first chance at closer. He said on Fox Sports Detroit, I want it to be where when they open the gate and I come in, the boys know the game is over. And I thought that showed a little bit of moxie and a little bit of brass. And I'm like, yes, that's what we want in a closer. A situation where you don't have to question and be so panicked all the time. When Green went up there and his performances, he looked pretty good. And I was impressed, and I was pretty happy to see that because we're desperate here around town to find some level of success and consistency in that bullpen. And if it can be Jimenez, Rondon, and Green, I think then maybe you can start to maybe extend out and fix other issues with the bullpen.
See, the issue is, though, even if we go the rest of August and the rest of September and we actually do lock it down, 7, 8, 9, Jimenez, Rondon, Green, we're still going to have question marks going into next season. We're more than likely going to go into the offseason trying to get some sort of bullpen help, and where are they going to fit in, and are they going to make the right move, or are they going to overspend on another high-end, either setup guy or closer, and where are they going to fit in, and there's going to be a competition. So unless they're just committed, which I don't feel like this front office is smart enough to do this, they should let it roll. Let Jimenez, Rondon, Green go. If that's truly the way that you want to do, let it roll. Otherwise, it's just going to be, Ausmus is going to just be juggling continuously. And what's your take? Do you think the possibility that Avila and Ausmus are going to be here next season?
Yeah, I think that stability is going to be one thing that is going to be looked upon from Chris Ilitch. I don't see them just blowing out these guys. I feel like they want to see some consistency. I feel like that at the same time that they're going to reevaluate and see how Avila does in a rebuild, because obviously some of the moves that he made in terms of his spending, it's been well documented. It hasn't been that good. But at the same time, it's going to start to be noticed when Candelario comes up, how Jimenez does the rest of the year. Maybe they bring others up in September that we get a chance to see, and I think that will also be telling in terms of the organization and how it's viewed based upon what Avila has brought back.
And I'm not trying to give false hope to Tiger fans here.
I don't think it's going to happen. They're not going to make the move.
But you look at what Dombrowski did when he initially came here. He came here and he didn't immediately turn it around. He didn't have necessarily the canvas to paint with that Avila had when he stepped into the role. But he had to rebuild this team. So is Avila actually going to get the chance to rebuild this team, or are they just going to fire sale and try to get somebody else in here?
Yeah, see, I know we all think that the major point, the major stamp of a rebuild will be to blow out the management. But at the same time, if you do that, you probably change course, the direction of the organization. I don't know if that's where they're looking to right now. They're going with, okay, we're now going to start to look for new type of players, younger, more athletic, more affordable, more under team control for longer periods of time. And I want to see how Candelario does. How does Lugo do? How do these young guys that we got here perform? How do they come up here? Now, you have a plethora of young arms in the minors, and they're doing great things. Now the question will be, when they come up, let's say a Burrows or a Manning or a Faedo, how do they look when they come up here? Because if they look good, then I think that gives credence to upper management, i.e. Chris Ilitch, to say, look, okay, maybe in terms of giving him a checkbook might not have been the best idea, but maybe if we can go and look for different type of players, maybe Al Avila's strengths in terms of looking at prospects can be revealed, and we can go in that direction. So I think there's a little bit more evaluation we got to do, and it leads me to my question to you is, how do you think Candelario is going to look? And I ask this because here's the general notion and the two sides that people are taking. Me, I'm just a fan. You know what I mean? I don't care, and I don't make no bones about the fact that objectivity for me kind of goes left and right. You know what I mean? I'm a fan. I care about winning, and I care about the Tigers winning as soon as possible. Okay? But I see these two camps, and when I read Twitter and I read the debates, there's the camp that says, look, it takes a long-ass time for prospects to develop. We can't sit here and judge Jimenez. We can't sit here and judge all these young prospects that are going to come up because of the fact that it just takes time. And stop harping on them and stop, labeling all these guys as busts before you give them enough time to really come up and show what they got. But then I look at it from another perspective, and you got a rookie out there for the Dodgers, Cody Bellinger. The dude is mashing 32 home runs. He's a superstar rookie. I look at young superstar talent and I say to myself, look, can you recall back, other than Justin Verlander, a rookie that came up and showed anything, or a prospect that we traded for that came in and lit up major leagues? And so I say to myself, look, I'm a little bit jealous of what's going on with the Dodgers, damn near winning every game for the last 2 months. And I say to myself, look what we're doing. We got to see how Candelario does, how all these guys in the minors look. We got to be patient. Look, Jimenez, perfect example. Why is it that he can't come out and have 50 scoreless innings right away? Why can't he do that? I mean, dude's been balling in the minors. He gets up here, and we got to sit here and wait. And I know it's a little too early to judge whether Jimenez is a bust or not, but all I'm asking is, can some prospect that we bring up here come up and do something. Show us something, anything. You got other guys across Major League Baseball that have shown things. Look at Judge. Dude, it came out of nowhere.
If these
One
players were
prospect,
going to be as good as they were, we would already know that they were going to be good when they came up. You know, the Judges, all of those players. There's an idea that these were really good players. They were special players, and that they would do good.
Am I asking for too much?
We got asking for too much. We
got Fulmer. One prospect? One?
We haven't tanked. We need to get that first pick. The Bryce Harpers, the Mike Trouts, they don't just come off of trees. Okay,
I'm going to ask you this. In the next 5 seasons, do you think any of the guys, any name that you've looked at in the minors, is it going to be Burrows, Manning, Faedo? Is it anybody at all that you could say, you know what, I could see superstardom out of him? The only one right now that I guess I could start is Faedo, in that he just came off of the College World Series where he did a great job, got a strong arm. Others in the minors are doing some things, but is it wrong of me to say, okay, we got Fulmer, he came in and started performing right away. Across the board, all these other guys are maybes. And I'm just saying, I just want 1 or 2 more guys that I know, boom, when he comes up, we can celebrate, we can cheer, he's going to ball out. But everybody else, it just seems like the Tigers are selling, wait your turn and stop being so, overbearing on the prospects. And I say to myself, look, you got to have 1 or 2 hit. You got to have a couple guys. You got to get lucky on 1 or 2 prospects that come up and play like Michael Fulmer, where we can say, yes, there's hope. Otherwise, you're going to have us wait really another 4 or 5 years for all these guys to marinate, and maybe not any of them hit. That would be tough, man.
What it's going to be, though, it's all about luck. All those guys, Manning, Faedo, Burrows, it's all going to be luck. And none of those guys are for sure, major leaguers. And it really is. It's going to be a shot in the dark of, hey, maybe Matt Manning comes up and he actually is able to do some stuff. But maybe
so you're in the camp of wait and see.
I'm not saying that I like it. I'm just saying that that's the way that Major League Baseball is. We haven't been tanking. We aren't getting top picks in the drafts. We don't have a ton of top 10, top 20 prospects in all of Major League Baseball. We need, if you actually wanted a better chance to have these prospects come up earlier, you're going to have to do worse, kind of like the Astros did, getting Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve. Then you're going to have to be bad, and you're going to have to get a bunch of prospects. And maybe at that point, somebody will be able to do something right away.
Yeah, our supporters are lighting me up all over the place. Nobody so far has green-lighted the notion that it's going to be Jimenez, Rondon, or Shane Green. Detroit Sports Chat, #comedy, Harris Chang, no. Red the Bum, nope. All across the board, everyone's just messaging.
That's because you put Rondon in there.
Really? He's
putting
the one?
Rondon in any situation you're pretty much putting a gas can in there and waiting for a spark.
You don't give him any credit for the fact that he's rebounded a little bit in his last couple performances, has thrown 100 miles an hour. Is it just the fact that whenever a player kind of lulls in energy level output, or kind of when people start to see that he loves...
It's not about energy. It's about being able to produce. And Rondon, for an extended period of time, has not been able to produce, ever.
So you're putting Rondon in the bust category. Move him on? Have you moved on from Bruce Rondon? Okay.
I honestly, I would be fine if he wasn't on this team anymore, because really, he's the type of player you put in, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to get today.
Okay, so what's a fair assessment for Candelario? I know he's not going to probably be up for a long period of time. He replaced
Iglesias because he's on the bereavement list.
Yes. What would you like to see? Maybe a home run, a couple hits, something. What would you look at and go, wow, okay, I could be pretty impressed with this guy when he goes back to the minors? If
he could hit 250 in his time, and that's, maybe with a couple extra base hits and an RBI here or there, I'm thinking he maybe gets a couple games, maybe not even a couple, maybe like 1 or 2. If he can hit 250 with a little bit of extra base power, I'd be at least a little bit surprised, because of what we've seen so far, what he's done in the majors. That's about what he's done.
I'm putting out there to the baseball universe, just the Tigers fans deserve it. We've been watching this team play 3-hour baseball games plus. We deserve a guy, Candelario, come up here and steal Iglesias' job. That's what I want. I want him to come up here.
He's not even a shortstop. He's a third baseman.
Hey.
Or a first baseman.
Hey, you never know. He could come up here and play shortstop amazingly, grab the ball amazingly, and he could be like, look, I'm not going back down. This is my opportunity. I'm not going back down. My expectation is go out there and make it absolutely torturous for the Tigers to send you down. That's what I want to see.
All right, well,
2 home runs.
While you deal with hopes and prayers,
yes,
and you just set yourself up for failure.
No,
I'll deal with facts.
Yeah,
and I'll be waiting until next year because nothing's going to happen until then.
You have to have a little bit of craziness to keep talking about this because everyone else is just like, oh, Candelario, wait and see 3 years and we'll assess the nature of the trade. No, I want Candelario to steal Jose Iglesias' job today. Go out there. If you go out there and you're going to perform in Pittsburgh, go out there to PNC Park and hit 3 home runs, go 3 for 4, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, and make everybody go, hey-oh. And then most likely we'll get the whole, oh, you got to be careful. You got to kind of, ease your expectations.
You sound like a little kid going to a toy store.
Yes.
And you want...
There's nothing left.
I want a toy. I want it now. I want that now. I don't want to wait anything. I don't want to have any sense of achievement.
The last guy we hyped up was Chris Shelton, who had that amazing month, and then he disappeared.
Professional hitter.
Yes. I want a guy to have, the rest of August, September, and hit like 8 to 10 home runs, and to go out there and be like, oh my goodness, we're going to put in Candelario next year at third base. We're going to put Castellanos at first. Miggy's going to be a DH, and now we got a bat and we got a superstar. And that way, when we can see tweets from the Tigers, it's not all of this nonsense and entertainment type stuff. We can actually see a guy and hit some highlights, something great. I want to see something great from Candelario because of the fact that we're waiting. I'm just tired of waiting. No doubt about it. It does take a lot of patience, and I get that camp. I get it. But for me, I wouldn't mind a superstar in the making. I would love to say, hey, we made a trade for Justin Wilson.
Who wouldn't want a superstar in the making?
Hey, I'm saying
every team, how many teams? 30 teams in the Major League Baseball team would love a guy in
I'm saying I'm tired of whenever anybody tries to throw that notion out there that you automatically get a rebuttal. No, prospects take a long ass time to develop. Don't be expecting that. Stop saying that. I'm like, look, we got to ask for one, and I want it to be Candelario. That's the guy I'm pinpointing and saying, look, we traded Justin Wilson to Alex Avila, who hit a home run over the weekend. I want to see Candelario hit a home run, match what Avila did for the Cubs. You traded Justin Wilson for this guy, a young up-and-coming closer.
Justin Wilson?
You know what the Justin Wilson's going to be? Okay, forget the labels. An up-and-coming reliever that throws 90 miles an hour can get right-handed batters out.
For one season. Not even an entire season yet.
See, you do exactly what makes me upset, is that you try to poo-poo Justin Wilson as not an asset. That was a guy you let go of for these guys, and this is the guy. I think that I'm not hearing enough.
You want immediate returns, which you're not getting.
I want to see immediate returns.
So you just want the Tigers to win the World Series this year. Still.
No, I just want one.
No, this is what you want.
Okay, look.
You want immediate satisfaction from the players you got. You're expecting that what we were going to get is going to take us to the World Series this season.
You use the analogy, okay? Like a kid at Christmas, okay? Some people will say, hey, get the kid one awesome gift, okay? So you got an expectation. You give your parents a list. I want a PlayStation 4, and then you give them tiers, okay? I want a PlayStation 4, a bike for $80, or, some gift cards from iTunes for $40. Okay, so you open the first thing, it's a sweater. Oh, it's not the PlayStation, great, it's not that great. You open up the next thing, it's something else that you don't want, socks or a gift card to a movie place. You're like, dang, they didn't even get me any of these things? Okay, fine. You open up the next gift. None of the gifts are on the list. And so you're like, man, each time you open something, you see it, and you're just like, by the 5th and 6th thing that you open, it's not anything on the list of any value that you wanted. You go to yourself, man, I don't even want to open this anymore. And the way to put it towards what I'm saying is, we see Jimenez. He hasn't lit it up. We see other guys that have come up. Rondon, a guy that we've been waiting for 3 years, keeps going back into the minors, comes back up, doesn't light it up. We see other guys come up, doesn't light it up. You get tired of seeing all these guys come up, and each one you go, maybe this is the guy that can be a star, like a Fulmer. Hey, the next guy comes up, doesn't do it. The next guy comes up, I've got to send him back down. He looks terrible. And then you go to yourself, I'm just tired of seeing these guys. I don't want to have my hopes up anymore. So I just need one more guy.
So you stop watching baseball and get ready for football.
No, I want Candelario to come up here and steal Iglesias' job. That's what I want. I want to ask for one more prospect to show me something and not make me wait another 2 or 3 seasons for him to marinate. Cody Bellinger's, I think, damn near 22, 23 years old.
That's a hot take.
Where did he come from? Do you know anything about him?
Who? Bellinger or Candelario?
Cody Bellinger. I know that the Tigers were maybe making overtures to try and get him for Verlander, but who is this Cody Bellinger? Dude's 22 years old, 32 home runs for the Dodgers. They've won 44 or 51 games. Who is this cat?
Yeah, they're the Dodgers. They're also really good and have a bunch of other good players on their team. They could stand to take chances. Our team just needs to put out a bunch of crap players and see what they can do.
The problem is you can't argue when I'm right. That's just the nature of the game. Oh, look at that. Tiger, no Candelario first game versus Pittsburgh. Lineup just released.
I can't argue with somebody who's mental.
I'm not mental.
You're expecting him to come out here and do great things when you already know that he's not that player. He's been up to the majors this year, and he's hitting, I think, like 160.
You've made my point. Exactly. In that, why is it that, what is there left for us to be excited about when a guy that, we traded, one of our major players for comes in and he doesn't even get to play the first game?
There's nothing to be excited for. That's what I've been saying. Let's talk about some Lions.
All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about some football. I know the Kings juices will be flowing. Stay with us. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant. Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a place to host our recorded audio. We needed a place that was reliable, that could generate links for all our supporters across the country and even overseas could find us. And luckily, we found Podomatic.com. They've been our only host site since we started recording podcasts beginning in September of 2013. If you're looking to start a brand new project, a brand new podcast, and reach the levels of success as the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, we recommend using one host site, and that's Podomatic.com.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Up in the old school, Dr. Dre, good stuff.
The DRE.
The best part of the documentary was I had no idea, and I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, he released an album 2 years ago with the release of Straight Outta Compton, and I said, wow, with all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, news, all the websites that I had checked out at the time that the movie was released, I never heard of the release. And I said, man, I don't think they did a good enough job because I'm on social media damn near every day for the better part of the last 3 years, and I had no clue he released an album. So I don't know if it was just for the hardcore fans or what level of promotion he tried, but I had no idea up until I watched the HBO documentary that Dre even had a new album.
Yeah, definitely. I was really when they were talking about when's what was it? They were calling was it Relapse and I was waiting for them to actually say that something was happening, but then yeah, I think it was like Welcome to Compton, or it was just titled Compton. And so I'm a Spotify guy. So I went and I looked, and the only Dre that you can actually find is the 2001 album. And I think it might have something to do with his affiliation with Apple Music. So it might be a little bit more difficult to try and find Dre music out there for all you streaming people, unless you want to go out and actually buy a physical CD. But who would actually want to go out and buy a physical CD anymore in this day and age?
Absolutely right. And I was like, man, I'm a fan of Dre. I have his first album. I have listened to the second album, but I can understand a situation these days where if it's about iTunes downloads or single song plays and stuff like that, I'm not on Spotify. I've never even used it. So it's one of those things where, hey, the music industry has drastically changed. And for me, I just get a lot of my music from Pandora or from some of the satellite channels that I listen to. And hip hop has been a little bit lessened on my radar in the last few years. No doubt about it.
Well, let's talk about something that is on our radars, and that's Detroit Lion football. How many days away are we from fake football?
Ooh, I can't wait. I think now maybe by the time this podcast comes out, 10, 11 days away from the first preseason game versus Indianapolis. People are dialed in. They're excited. Many people, 27,000 people went out to Ford Field to check out the new renovations, kind of watch the mock game and come away with some of their impressions. It was pretty fun to look at the last week. Training camp has been pretty good. People are raving about the experience so far with going out to Allen Park, the changes that they've made. It's a lot more fan-friendly. Going out to Ford Field, many of the 27,000 walked away happy. They were impressed with the changes made at Ford Field. I was reading all the reviews, and most of them were positive, but there are some concerns and some points of reference that we can definitely talk about. But at this point in time, how excited are you for football coming back?
I'm just so happy to have football back because baseball is such a long and drudging sport. 162 games is a long season, and it's hard to really, come in here every week and either get really high or get really low on a team. So, and that's why when you're listening to these podcasts, you hear me say that it's a roller coaster, because that's really what it is. John, I leave it to you to be the guy who's, coming out here and saying that a prospect that we just traded for needs to come in and steal the starting spot and get 2 home runs in his first game. I leave that to you.
Yes.
But football, it's once a week. It's 16 games, and so much can happen week to week. I'm just pumped.
Yes, I think it's everyone that has been excited for football. I mean, did you see the ratings for the Hall of Fame game? Outdrew a lot of NBA games, Major League Baseball games, outrageous numbers for a game where most of the time the starters weren't even in the game.
Yeah, did we even see Dak Prescott or Carson Palmer?
I didn't watch it. For me, I didn't watch the Hall of Fame game. I'm focused and locked in on.
I watched that Kellen Moore throw some touch. I think he threw a touchdown pass. But there was one instance where they got to the red zone. I'm like, Kellen Moore interception coming right here. And I think 2 plays later, Kellen Moore interception.
See, good old predictable. So you know that the Lions are really, really the toast of the town. People are expecting them to do big things. The Lions have the job of picking up the slack for the other 3 organizations that are trailing way in the back of people's minds in terms of confidence. People are now looking at the Lions, shockingly, in terms of their hope for sports success in Detroit. And I'm going, oh God, please don't mess up this year, because everyone's expectations are super high. You got Bob Quinn, you got Stafford, and many people are on his bandwagon and really hoping that a long-term deal gets done. That contract situation's still there. Quinn is talking about it, saying that we're a long way away, but they're confident they're going to probably figure something out. So in my mind, whether he be franchised or he gets a long-term deal, Stafford's going to be the quarterback in 17 and 18. I can at least tell you that. I don't think they're going to do what I want, which is just let him go. Let him walk. Which
is dumb.
It's not dumb.
Again, being the crazy person who just says the crazy
All
things.
I'm going to say and float out there is game 2, if Stafford goes down and Rudock comes in, that's the same time, year 2, game, 2 or 3, same time that Tom Brady came in to start his career. Big name quarterback. That's when Tom Brady started his career, when the big time quarterback was hurt, and he came in his rookie year, led him all the way to the Super Bowl. So you never know.
We'll also need another 10 years, though, to see if he's actually as good as Tom Brady. I'm not going to completely count out that the possibility is there that Rudock could come in here and possibly lead this team to some sort of success. Now, what I do know about Jake Rudock is, he doesn't have the athletic ability that Matt Stafford does. But
maybe he could be the game manager.
Maybe it's not what we need. So they would
6th round pick.
They would definitely tailor it to
from
Jake Rudock.
Michigan.
But I'm going to say more than likely that if Jake Rudock comes in and is going to be our quarterback for the rest of the year after week 2, we're looking at a losing season.
Okay. So you're excited. I know that everyone's excited around town. Let's start with 2 of the names that people have kind of looked at. Let's start with the negative first. People are already calling out Teez Tabor for being a bust because they were observing, and at the mock game, he was getting beat left and right, and he hasn't looked stellar. And he's been consistent in just saying, look, this is a process. I'm going to get torched. This is part of my learning experience. But people are kind of commenting that he does look slow, and he does look one step behind the receivers in current practices.
Defensive back is one of the most difficult positions to pick up in NFL. And I'm sorry that I deal in facts, John. Look at what Darius Slay did in his rookie year. He came in, he was the starter for the first few games, got yanked, and then he got benched through the rest of the season.
Yeah, you're the patience preacher. That's why I have you here. Good for you. We have to wait. Nobody can expect him to come out and have like 7 interceptions his first year and just dominate the league. We got to preach patience.
You can't come out and expect that. If he comes out and does that, it's a very, very pleasant surprise.
And that's what I'm hoping for these days in Detroit sports is pleasant surprises
And that's what I hope for too.
Yes.
You don't think I want to see that? You don't think I want to see Jared Davis come out and have like 150 tackles and like 10 sacks and 10 interceptions?
Now on the other side of the spectrum, Chad Johnson, national pundits are all coming out and saying, hey, this Kenny Golladay is a guy that could be rookie of the year, could have a big impact, could slot in number 3 right away and develop a strong bond with Matthew Stafford. And I'm like, yeah, talk like that. Let's just pump him up a little bit and let him come out there and handle his business and maybe come out there and have 7 to 8 touchdowns his rookie year. Let him come out there and hustle and work and be productive right away.
It's totally possible. Again, I'm not going to get too high. I don't want to get too low. But I think that slot position, that third wide receiver, is a key part of this Detroit Lions offense. And you see what Anquan Boldin, who actually just signed with the Buffalo Bills today, he was the third wide receiver last year. I don't think a lot of people expected a ton out of him, but he came out, and I think he led the team in touchdowns. If he didn't, he was right up there as first or second. So that slot receiver is he's the guy he's the dump off for Matt Stafford. If Golden Tate didn't get off of his route, or if Marvin Jones miraculously got bumped off of his route, that never happened last year, right? There's going to be a lot of good matchups for Kenny Golladay, and if he can exploit those and they call good routes for him, he could have a decent season.
I'm hoping for it because the Lions are going to need as much help offensively as they can get, especially if the left side is going to be an issue. So people did pinpoint there is a debate going on regarding how much concern we should have in that the left side didn't look too good in the mock game, and Stafford was taking some hits. They were getting consistently beat, and people are like, whoa, relax. It's still early in the preseason. They still got to work it out in terms of who's going to actually fill that spot, and the guy whoever it may be, has to learn the system and definitely needs more time in terms of making sure that when whoever it may be who earns that job has got to come in and really help out in terms of protecting Matthew Stafford, that by the first mock game, after a couple of practices, that there's no way you could expect the left side to be, running at full steam. But it was concerning. People did notice it.
This is my biggest concern outside of maybe the defensive line on the other side of the ball is the left tackle spot. And I'd like to come out here and be like, oh, you got to give Greg Robinson and Cyrus Kouandjio a little bit more time to pick it up. But we haven't heard anybody be like, yeah, they're starting to pick it up. Everything that I've read or heard about both of those players is that they either look bad or worse than that. And that doesn't sound good for me. This is in your quarterback's blind side that Matt Stafford, one of the things that we've seen in the past couple of seasons is that, when he has time, he is a very effective passer. But when he has to scramble, it's definitely, the percentage rate drops down.
Perfect segue into a talking point I wanted to have and ask you. Let's just say, and obviously we're going to knock on wood, double knock on wood. We have to hope that Stafford stays healthy. But let's just say, knowing that the left side has an issue, you got guys that we have concerns about. Let's say Stafford does go down, let's just say for a game or two. Okay, or maybe an extended period of time, because if it's a game or two, I think they'll just go to Rudock or maybe even Kaya. At the very least, they might go down to the third quarterback if Rudock is absolutely atrocious. But let's say Stafford has a long-term injury. First, second preseason game, something happened fluky, Stafford's out for the year. Okay, so I put it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, poll question of the day. Stafford has a long-term injury. It'd be unfortunate. It'd be devastating. Does Quinn make a phone call to Tony Romo or Colin Kaepernick in terms of coming in here and taking over for the number one quarterback? Many people went outside the question and said, hey, go with Rudock, and that will be the situation. That will be what happens. But I just asked, between those two guys, who do you think the supporters voted in more in terms of who they want, Tony Romo or Colin Kaepernick? And would you make a call to either if Stafford goes down for a long period of time? You make a call to either of those two?
I would totally make a call to both of those players first off. And if one of those guys fits better than the other, then I would totally take them. If you're asking me alone, which guy would I prefer to come in? I have to go with Tony Romo. I think he's a quarterback who fits more of what this team is. He's a pocket passer, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like he's a little bit more accurate than Colin Kaepernick.
Yep.
I think Colin Kaepernick is he's a mobile threat quarterback. And
a couple of followers noted, though, with the struggling offensive line, should that be the case, wouldn't you want potentially a mobile quarterback that can be elusive, who, if he sees the line breaking down, can scramble and get some yards?
But I feel like that's kind of the situation where he was in San Francisco, is that he was on a team that didn't have a very good offensive line, so he did have to scramble a lot. And I think he tried to be a more throwing quarterback as opposed to a rush first guy.
Now, our supporters definitely voted a little bit more for Tony Romo, but not as large a discrepancy than I would have thought. Tony Romo, 57%, Colin Kaepernick, 43%.
I am not opposed to either of those guys coming in. I mean, nobody's given the light of day to Colin Kaepernick.
So obviously you would have voted in that poll for Tony Romo. Now, let's say of the three, you add Jake Rudock into the mix. Do you just not, do you make the argument that, hey, don't make any of those calls because it might take Tony Romo a long time to learn the system? Dude can't stay healthy anyway. He probably would last 4 snaps and be out. Colin Kaepernick, the storm is way too great in regards to bringing that guy in, and we'll talk about that quickly here in the next few minutes, but the storm may be too much. The noise, the outside pressures may be too much to not even call for a Colin Kaepernick to come here. Would you then, if it's a long-term injury, give it to the backup Rudock and say, hey, make it happen. The time is ticking. You're the guy.
I think you still have to make those calls. You can't just immediately, unless you absolutely know in your mind that Jake Rudock can pick up this offense with the minimal regression in your offense. I think you have to at least make those calls to both of those players. And you see there's going to be pluses, there's going to be pros and cons with both of those players. I do agree. Tony Romo is a guy who I think he's a hit away from being done for the year as well. So it'll really come down to who's available. And
prior to Jay Cutler signing with the Miami Dolphins for $10 million, many people said, hey, I might have even dialed Jay Cutler up to see if he could come here. Cutler's back in the league and Colin Kaepernick isn't. Does that give you, when you look at it, when we look at a situation where we've watched Jay Cutler and we go, oh my God, dude, when we played him and we had time to study him, we could average 2 or 3 interceptions per game. And a stretch there, we went 2 years where we never lost to the Bears, and Jay Cutler would throw the ball consistently to the Detroit Lions, turnover machine. We were able to limit the Bears' offense, and so we see what the guy has, and we know that he's worked with Adam Gase before and that there was some level of success offensively. But do you think that it's fair that a guy like Jay Cutler signs for $10 million, and I know that it seems like a large number, but he's not even one of the top 20 paid NFL quarterbacks with that number. Not even the top 20 in terms of his salary, but he signs for 1 year, $10 million. And a guy like Colin Kaepernick, who if you just ranked him, slotted him, is probably one of the, if you say lower ranked, at least in the top 100 in terms of quarterbacks, so he should have a job, but I understand why he doesn't. How surprised are you that Colin Kaepernick's not in the league and a Jay Cutler is signed with a team? And some people even said, hey, if something happens to Stafford, bring him here.
In this situation, I'm not that surprised that the Dolphins went with Jay Cutler, just because I feel like he
knows the system, so it's fair.
It's a perfect situation going in with Adam Gase. But definitely with the rest of the NFL, with teams looking for backup quarterbacks, I mean, the Browns didn't even give a look. That's a team that
I know Osweiler over Colin
Osweiler.
Kaepernick.
It makes no sense why some of these guys are starting quarterbacks. And Colin Kaepernick isn't getting a job. So Dolphins, I get Jay Cutler, and it could completely backfire. They could have signed Colin Kaepernick, and that could have completely backfired for them. I mean, there's still a possibility that Jay Cutler may not win the starting job. They have Matt Moore, who's been a pretty decent quarterback for the Dolphins, and really around the NFL. He's been a serviceable backup. And if Tannehill can actually come back this year, then you have a situation on your hand where you have a bunch of high-paid quarterbacks. But around the league, it makes no sense why Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job. Going just on football talent alone, he deserves to have a job. And the issue might be that maybe the money just doesn't line up. That I don't know what he's asking for or what his asking price is, but it might be kind of a situation where he's almost overqualified, where you bring him in and you kind of expect him that he's going to be the starting quarterback. Teams may just not want to deal with that. I'm not making excuses, but
does Colin Kaepernick take a snap for an NFL team ever again?
Yes, he's going to take a snap at some point because some team's going to be desperate. Some team's going to need a quarterback, and you'll probably see it sometime in the first six to 8 weeks this year, the first half of the season, that a team will probably bring in Colin Kaepernick, and he might not start right away, but they'll give him a couple weeks to really get the system, and then he'll be on the field again.
Okay, I can respect that. I think it's a really interesting debate. A lot of people are talking about it. It really is unfortunate that he is being blackballed, but at the same time, it's a lesson that everybody has to learn. You can revel and you can live in the zone of how you want things to be, but you also have to be aware of how things are. And I don't think that it's too much to ask that if Colin Kaepernick was going to take a stand to sit down when the national anthem was being sang, that you might get a big backlash. You got to realize, too, the owners are really conservative. It's not a surprise to me. You have older, white, conservative owners. You don't conceptualize how they may think or how that may be perceived. So I can understand that Colin Kaepernick wants to be back in the league and he wants to continue to play football. But at the same time, if I were to sit here and he was across from me, I would ask, what percentage of you thought that there would be a backlash in terms of what you did? Did you really think that if you sat when the national anthem was being sang and you have the United States flag presented with servicemen holding it, fans holding it, that you'd be kneeling? What did you think the reaction was going to be? Yes, you were going to get attention, but did the notion or did anybody say to you and pull you aside and say, look, if you do this, there's a chance you might be out of the league? I would have hoped one person should have told him. I would have told him.
It makes
I would have told him.
Sense because
what do you mean?
It doesn't make sense why he's blackballed. Yes, he protested.
Why do you think he's blackballed?
Because people don't want to deal with the hassle.
No, Jason. Here's what happens when you talk about
this. Is a guy who's
Jason. When you talk about patriotism,
protest, he's sparked conversations. He's donated money. This is a guy who's actually tried to do some good.
Yes.
And we have players who beat their wives who are still in the league.
Yes, because there's perceived gain in terms of their football abilities. One, general managers probably don't think that he's got enough of a football IQ or enough football talent to be on a team. Two, more importantly,
this is a player who's been to the Super Bowl in the last 10 years.
But in terms of his production on the field, many people are arguing that this guy's, he's
just as good as Jay Cutler, who just got a job.
Yes, he is a backup at best, but he has the ability to continue to grow, but he's 30 years old. The bigger thing, though, that's causing the issue in terms of why
Colin Kaepernick is better than Mike Glennon?
Yeah, of course. I do think that he has obviously talent, but here's the other reason why the evaluation then goes to all negative. Okay, when you upset a group of people in terms of when we talk about patriotism, many people are offended and are angry at the fact that Kaepernick would sit for the national anthem, especially for the cause that he was, purportedly trying to overcome. So you want to, stop police brutality. Why are you sitting for the national anthem? What you do is go out there and continue to do what you did, but you could have did it a different way. You could have spoke up. I think if he doesn't kneel for the national anthem, if he speaks up, if he wears shirts, he could have done everything else but kneel. He would not have offended everybody. It would have just been like, okay, we're going to listen to him or not listen to him. But when you kneel for the national anthem, now you offend people who are paying money for the National Football League. And many owners are like, if we sign Kaepernick, we're going to lose our sweet holders. We're going to lose the people with the big bucks who don't want to support somebody who they view as unpatriotic. That's the reason why, is that big-time supporters, big-time owners who are conservative don't want to deal with any of the noise associated with Colin Kaepernick. And look what happened last week. Colin Kaepernick doesn't get a job with Baltimore. His girlfriend comes out and calls the owner racist. Now, okay, if you're a racist, you don't have an African-American running your team for the better part of the last 10 years. Okay, so I don't think that the owner of the Baltimore Ravens is a racist. And I do think that Colin Kaepernick, you don't know when it's going to end. He could even ramp up his protest should further things happen. And an organization can't take that risk. They can't allow not knowing how this guy is going to react to different situations. What's he going to protest next? They're like, look, we don't need to deal with that. We can control different situations better than somebody we don't really know how he's going to react to different things when this guy is a protester. So it
comes down to the teams would rather take a safe route and take a guy who might actually be better than whoever they're bringing in.
That's what it is. You risk really a media firestorm. You risk a lot, and unfortunately, it stinks to say, and it shouldn't be that way, but in the NFL, money talks. Owners think that they might lose sponsors, they might lose suite holders, big time players that contribute financially to them. That's why this is happening. Many people don't want Colin Kaepernick and the noise that he brings, and combined with the, let's just say, a B- quarterback grade. They don't want that on your team. That you could take, somebody with C talent with no drama over Colin Kaepernick, and I think he should have knew that. I really believe he should have knew that, and he should have protested in a much different way. Go out there, go out to rallies, go out there and donate to, African-American funds and African-American causes. Go do that. Speak your mind. I don't think that people would have been so offended by verbal protests or verbal actions. But when you sit for the national anthem, I don't know how you could do it, because the first thing that I do is when I see the flag and I go watch a game, I stand up, hand on my chest. I respect the flag, and I can still disagree.
Coming from the guy who doesn't vote for the president.
I don't vote, Jason, because I have to earn. And unfortunately, earning is a little bit more important for me than
Colin
it is for...
Kaepernick has to earn.
But I don't stand for the flag. When I see the flag, I stand up. This has come from a guy who doesn't like Proud to be an American, who rather hear a cartoon song.
That's a dumb song.
I heard it.
It's not the national anthem.
Listen. The national anthem, you have to respect it, and so I'm
not going to respect Lee Greenwood.
I would never sit in front of the flag in front of me, especially when you see the servicemen, and I know they'll say, look, we fought for your right to do that, but at the same time, I would never sit for the national anthem. You can protest in a lot of different ways. Go out there and, be part of these rallies. Do whatever you can, but when the national anthem, by sitting down for it, you're going to cause a storm, and I would be aware that it would cause a huge issue. So if he thinks it's going to be easy for him to get back in the league, you got another thing coming. It's going to be super tough.
Well, we'll see. I think he's in a better situation than Ray Rice, because Ray Rice truly was on the downside of his career. His numbers are going down. Colin Kaepernick, he's not that far removed from being a serviceable quarterback. Okay. And I think he's going to be on the team some year.
Real quickly, where are we at with the fantasy podcast and your preparations before we get out of here?
Fantasy nerds.
Canceling it? No.
I was definitely struggling at the end of last year, but I think I've recharged enough, and everything goes well, barring a setback. Should have episode 1 of season 3 on Friday.
Yes, sir. I know it was a big ask last year to start in May, and it probably burned you out going May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 8 months of fantasy podcasting.
It was a lot.
But it was sponsored. It was on your own, but it was sponsored. It was cool. Continued success this year. The podcast is going to be great. Every Friday, Fantasy Nerds. Every Sunday, Jason will finally open up his Twitter and answer your questions. We'll definitely on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, fire it up, and you can ask away. All I can say regarding Jason and his fantasy prowess, prior to knowing Jason, I was a middle-of-the-road fantasy guy, 6th place, 5th place, occasionally getting to the postseason, occasionally making a run, consistently picking Jason's brain, listening to his podcast each and every episode on DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Last 2 years, I've been in at least one championship game. I haven't broken through yet to win a league, but I've consistently elevated my performance. And one of the reasons why is because I listen to Jason's podcast and I pick his brain each and every week. And so if you want fantasy success, find it from an expert and one of the guys that will help you, genuinely will help you. He'll interact with you. He'll answer most of your questions because I'll push him to. Follow him on Twitter at Jarvie the King, at Detroit Podcast. You can definitely have more fantasy success if you listen to Jarvie the King. I'm an idiot. No doubt about it. I've tried to make bogus trades year after year, but with Jason's help, I put together so-so squads and taken them all the way to the finals, and maybe this year I'll break through. But all I can say is I'm a walking example of the success you can have if you listen to the Fantasy Nerds podcast and follow Jarvie the King on Twitter.
Fantasy Nerds coming on Friday. I'll give you a quick little tip. As I've been saying over the past couple years, that we've been seeing trends of wide receivers being the big picks in drafts, and the shift is going back again to running backs.
Ooh.
I'll explain a little bit more in the first episode.
And you know what? Answer me a question on the first episode. Would you risk an investment, number one, with Ezekiel Elliott, with the upcoming potential that he could miss some time because of some off-the-field issues that he had this offseason. So many people are speculating that potentially, if it kind of goes to form, you're looking at maybe 4 to 5 game suspension to start the year because of some off-the-field issues. So if you want to know how much to invest in Ezekiel Elliott, a strong running back in 2016, listen to the Fantasy Nerds. Jason will lay it down and give you the best advice in terms of how to deal with Ezekiel Elliott.
And I'll let you know that. But that'll wrap up this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. He's John. I'm Jason. Until next week, peace. Coming out here and saying that a prospect that we just traded for needs to come in and steal the starting spot and get 2 home runs in his first game. I leave that to you.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.